moment. It's prepping. It's like, we're being live streamed, but I never trusted it. So I'm going to bring up Facebook just to make sure. And just to give people a few moments to find it, make their way. Oh, there we are. Wonderful. Okay. Alrighty, so everyone is here. So thank you for joining us for our last pop culture panel series of 2021. Can't believe it's already December. What has happened to the entire year? Today, we're going to be chatting all about Jane Austen in popular culture and retellings. This event is in partnership with Mysterious Galaxy Bookstore, where you can purchase books by our guest panelists. The link to that page is in the description of the chat. Today, I am joined by romance authors Sarah Dawes, Sonali Dev, Tirzah Price, along with Jane Austen experts Bianca Hernandez-Knight and Devoney Looser. Yes, glorious. We're off to a good start. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to talk to all of you about Jane Austen and about your experiences and your books, and Bianca, all your wonderful sewing geekiness. I want to let everyone watching this live know that if you have questions for the panelists, just plop those into the Facebook comments and we'll get to them kind of as they come up. If you're watching this when it's recorded, at least you get to enjoy the chat. Sorry. Also the chat will be uploaded to YouTube later. So if for some reason something happens with Facebook, you can watch it on YouTube. So thank you so much. Let's just kind of start with a little general introduction with everyone, kind of how you are, tell us about yourselves. And I didn't think about who to start with. Let's start with Tirzah. No, I have to remember.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's so wonderful to see all of your faces. So yes, I'm Tirzah Price. I'm the author of Pride and Premeditation, which is the first in a trilogy of Jane Austen murder mystery retellings, sort of set in an ahistorical Regency period. So I take a lot of fun liberties. You know, it's always fun when you get to like do all the research, but then decide what actually serves you in the story and throw out the rest. But yeah, so this is my debut YA novel. I live in Iowa. I work for Book Riot, where I do a lot of fun YA stuff with their podcasting and their content. So I'm very immersed in all the bookish world and all the fun literary things. So thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. I'm just going to go visually with who's next, at least for my view, which I'm pretty sure is the view for people watching. So it's their view too. So Bianca, a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I am a Jane Austen nerd, a meme magnate, I guess. I don't know. I love Jane Austen. I love all things literary and romance. Rom-com bracket is like a terrible but wonderful thing I like to play on social media. Every March Madness, when it rolls around, we do a little bracket. It's fun. But other than that, I work professionally in social media, and I have a background in many things, not only communications and a lot of marketing and stuff, but I also dabble in some film things. And I'm going back to school for fashion because why not? What else are we doing with our lives? So I'm a person of many interests, and I think that like Austen is definitely a thing that like I think everyone can approach with like their interests and make the most of it, which is a really cool paddling pool to be in.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy that you and Tirzah are with us. So now, Devoney, right? I said it right.
You absolutely just
Okay,
great
we're
to be
good.
here. I'm Devoney Looser, and I'm a professor of English at Arizona State University and a Janeite. And my most recent books are The Making of Jane Austen and The Daily Jane Austen, A Year of Quotes. I also did a series of lectures on Jane Austen for the Great Courses that came out last year. And I have a book coming out next year on the sister novelists Jane and Anna Maria Porter in the Age of Austen. So I love doing things that are Austen and Austen adjacent, and I'm just really excited to be part of the conversation today.
Thank you so much. And Sonali, which you're like everywhere on this wall.
you. So I'm Sonali Dev, and I am not a Jane Austen scholar. So let's put that out there first. I'm a huge fan, and I am someone who was very highly influenced by her books as a young girl growing up in India. So I just today hit send on my final copy edits for the fourth in this series. So I have a series of my 4 favorite Jane Austen novels under one series umbrella of this politically ambitious Indian American family, the Indian Kennedys, if you will, for lack of a better reference. But they are Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors, Recipe for Persuasion, and In Sense and Sensibility. This might also be the first time in my life I'm doing a Zoom and had all 3 books at hand on my lap. So yay, yay me. These are not retellings. I have not wandered into this panel by mistake. I'm not a scholar, and these are not retellings. These are homages to lessons I have learned from these stories, and influences, again, to the person I became. These are homages to those lessons. And so they're also a lot of fun, but not at all. If you're trying to do a one-to-one match with scene and character, that's not what these books are. It's more of a scavenger hunt in there. And there's certainly my stories, but there's certainly huge thank yous and homages to a woman from 200 years ago who pretty much decided who I was going to be.
Thank you, Sonali. And Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me on. Also not a scholar, but this is a retelling. This is a Persuasion retelling where the rhythm takes you, a young adult contemporary, and it's set in Trinidad and Tobago specifically, which is where I'm from. And it is lightly inspired by my time growing up in a hotel. It is my debut novel, and it came out earlier this year, so it's available wherever books are available.
Yay. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I want to say that's like, we're going to be talking about Jane Austen in all forms and all experiences that the panelists have, everything they've written or thought about. So everything's game. We just want to talk about Jane Austen because Jane Austen is amazing. Yeah, what more can you say? Okay, so now you've introduced yourselves. So we're just gonna start off with the big question of why Jane Austen? So you've kind of talked a little bit about your interest already and kind of how you started, but talk a little bit more about your interest in Jane Austen and how like you first discovered her works, like when you first found them, started reading them. Was it the book you found? Was it something else that you found? So first, the question to the authors. So what drew you to tell these stories that were inspired by Jane Austen? And I guess we'll start Tirzah again.
Okay.
It's like an L.
Yeah. So I definitely did not read Jane Austen's books first. I mean, I was actually thinking about this earlier today, trying to remember like what was like my point of exposure. And I honestly don't know, but it had to have been probably an adaptation that I saw on screen. Like I just have this memory of being like in middle school and watching the Emma with adaptation, at sleepovers. And that was like, I didn't realize that there was this whole other world of Jane Austen beyond that. And then I was I was in high school when the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice came out, and everybody was just falling all over it. So that was like the impetus to like actually pick up all of the books and read them. And yeah, and I mean, I'm an English major, so I've always loved Jane Austen, and I've also always like really loved retellings. So yeah, when it came time to write these books, like I've always liked mysteries, and I've always liked retellings. And so it was kind of just like this wild idea of like, what if these stories were murder mysteries? And it was like too fun not to explore. So that's kind of like the the quick and dirty way that it kind of came about. But definitely like back-ended by like so many viewings of various BBC versions and adaptations, and lots of just like devouring all the Jane Austen media, which, you know, I think it's kind of very fun and really special that like there's just so much out there about Jane Austen, that there's so many different ways that you can come to just love everything to do with their books. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and I was trying to remember too. Like, I don't know if it was a movie or a book, but everything. I have everything. I have all the movies. I have all the books. I think I have multiple copies. So it's just like a haze of Jane Austen in my brain. So look at that. And I'm Sonali. So what drew you to telling stories, and how you first discovered Jane Austen?
I think I kind of segued into it a little bit when I was introducing myself, but I do remember exactly how I was introduced to it. I think I was in sixth grade. So also I just felt my age very acutely when Tirzah was talking. But I was in middle school when and I grew up in Mumbai, so I was in middle school in Mumbai, Bombay at the time, when there was a TV adaptation in Hindi. And this is the days of television when we used to have a few hours of programming a day, as opposed to the 200 million channels and streamers, right? So it was a big deal that this book named Pride and Prejudice was being retold on Indian television, when what we called Indian serials were literally in their infancy. This was probably the second or third Hindi language TV serial ever made. So it was scene by scene. It was basically Pride and Prejudice translated into very beautiful Hindi / Urdu, set in an Indian family, you know, and it translates perfectly the pressure for girls to get married, all the things. But what I remember, so it was a big deal, but what I remember is Lizzie Bennet, who was named Rekha. Obviously they didn't try to do the match the names thing, but what I remember is seeing a heroine almost for the first time in my life, who was opinionated, who didn't pander to all the aunties, who didn't behave in a certain way to be liked by the men, who basically was contrary and grumpy, and she was loved because of it. And it was literally like some internal natural belief in my heart that saw a mirror that I was not seeing anywhere else. So I was like, what is this thing? And ran out to my school library, checked out Pride and Prejudice, and then have read it a million times since, and checked out all of her books, or at least the 4. And just one after the other, I just kept seeing my, you know, what I believed that was not being reflected in the world around me, being reflected in her books. Women who were actually, you know, who wanted things. There was no heroines. This is like so tragic. But in Bollywood, Hollywood, Western literature, Indian literature, I was not seeing female protagonists who wanted things, who had desires, and who were not punished for it, you know, and who didn't always do the right thing, who made huge mistakes, and saw wins in the end, found love, you know, found people who treated them badly, crashed and burned, you know, so their self-worth didn't destroy them. And I wasn't seeing this. And of course, in 6th grade, I didn't see this, but in the years since, I did. And we'll come back and talk about the rest of it. But each one of them, there was something in there that I think changed the course of my life. And yeah, and I knew a long time ago I was going to retell. You know, what that was going to look like has changed and changed and changed. So I knew.
I love it. I have to say, Sonali, I love that I saw your mug, and I think we have the matching mugs.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Like, we are all on the right panel.
My best friends, my girl gang, got this for me. I think the year that Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors came out.
Love it. And let me get back to the questions. Oh my goodness, we have so many comments. I just want to say on Facebook, everyone, aw, Bianca, Frank says it's wonderful seeing everyone. Oh, it's your hubs. Okay. And we have viewers, Jessica and DJ. Thank you everyone who's watching and commenting. Okay, back to the questions. So Sarah, why Jane Austen? How did you first discover her works? What drew you to telling stories inspired by her?
Yeah, I also don't entirely remember my first how I found out about Jane Austen. Like, I think I knew Pride and Prejudice, like the story of Pride and Prejudice, before I ever read the book. I think it may have been an adaptation. I'm not sure. I may have had like a children's abridged version of the book at one point, but honestly, I can't remember. But I remember when I started to really appreciate her work, and it did actually start with Persuasion, which is Where the Rhythm Takes You is based on. And it happened because my school library, when I was about 13-ish, it got like this massive renovation done. And it was amazing. Like, they got a ton of books, and like I'd always been a reader before that, but I never had access to like that many books. So I like almost lost my mind. It was amazing. And they had this really nice set of classic novels, really nice bindings and stuff. And even though I had heard of Jane Austen and I knew Persuasion, like I really didn't know her other works. And for some reason, when I was looking at these classics, like Persuasion just sort of called out to me, and I read it. And I think when you first go into classics, you have like sort of this block, like it's going to be tough, it's going to be dense, but I ended up like really enjoying it and sort of being surprised by how accessible it was, even at like 13, and like I had never read like classics like that before, and how funny her voice was as well. And of course, the second chance romance, like that is my favorite trope. I love it so much. So it really stuck with me. So writing this book was basically me getting a chance to retell one of my favorite stories, which was a lot of fun. Yeah.
I love it so much. Thank you. I love it when you guys plug in like, oh, my library, oh, my childhood library. Like, yes, please tell me more. I love it so much. Okay, so now we're going to be asking questions to our experts / geeks / everything Austen, Bianca and Devoney. So first, Bianca, so you blog, you sew, and you spread the importance of diversity in Jane Austen scholarship. Tell us a little bit about how you discovered Jane Austen and how that grew into you advocating for a more inclusive Jane Austen community.
First, I want to say libraries are really important to my whole life because my grandma was working in a library when I was a kid. So I spent a lot of time like helping her close out and being like, sorry, you have to go and like either check out books. But like I was like the little kid that was like helping close the library at night and like then getting to like hang out in the library at night. And that was the coolest thing ever for me. So like all the love for everything libraries do for people. But I think too, kind of looking at that, my first Austen that I bought was at a library book sale, and like I recently posted the like cover of it, and it's just like it was 75 cents at when it was originally sold, coming apart. Lizzie Bennet had blue eyeshadow. It is beautiful. It is everything to me because it is my first like me actually reading it. I definitely didn't think about until later that Clueless was actually my first introduction to Austen. Did not realize at the time, but it was, later on that I was like, oh, that was so well done. And I think that really is kind of clutch because that's like one of my favorite adaptations now. When I rewatch it, I'm like, oh man, like everything about this was just intentional and great. And like, that's what a modernization can do for this stuff, for any kind of classic literature. It can, do an homage, but also do justice to what's currently happening. Anyway, Yeah, Pride and Prejudice, I think I read it once, like in 6th grade potentially, and then like again later. And 6th grade me versus like 12-year-old me versus 16-year-old me, it was a little bit different each time. I got it a little bit more. I understood more about what the Regency era was and what she was talking about and where the humor was. But I even think to this day, there are times where, I didn't really appreciate Persuasion as much until I was a little bit older. And I was just like, this really hits so differently for me when I read these things. And then when I read other people making their own retellings or their scavenger hunts, I love that description so much. I come back to those too in the same kind of ways where I can reread them and be like, oh yeah, like not only am I seeing these different threads from Austen, but I see these threads from life. And it's so touching and moving. I think that like that's really what I see when I see these people, owning their own takes on her story. Cause I definitely am like, it's almost pick your own adventure when you read her book sometimes of like what it's going to mean to you. As far as advocating for something, I think the big thing is I've learned early on, if something isn't safe for you and other people aren't going to make that space for you, you kind of have to just make that space for yourself. And I think a lot of people feel that way about the creative work they do too. And, I definitely have been a person that's like, if I can try to make that space happen, I'm definitely here for it. If I can support, I'm definitely here to support. And yeah, I just think like me looking at Austen, especially the digital sphere around the Pemberley digital releases for the Lizzie Bennet Diaries and Emma Approved and all that, I think I really saw a need for having a space that was less focused on kind of a certain generation of readers and a certain demographic of readers, and one that centered a different demographic and a different generation, because I think that's really critical to be like, hey, there are spaces, if you want to read this as just this, you don't want retellings, you don't want diverse casting, there are places for you elsewhere. There are places for folks, like I definitely think that like in the bigger discussion of, yes, I think Jane Austen's for everybody, I think my spaces are specifically for people who aren't going to be racist. Like specifically, my spaces aren't actually for everybody. They're actually for people who are going to support inclusion. And that's not going to be everybody. And I want to make that clear in those spaces because it's recentering those conversations. And I think it's really critical to be that upfront with folks where, people got really upset whenever I was like talking, and Devoney actually has a great book about this, talking about Jane Austen in terms of even feminism. There are some readers who were very upset about even the notion of feminism in a sentence with Jane Austen, but I'm a person who's like, but in my spaces that I'm going to be in and going to be supporting, we are going to actively be okay with these conversations. If other people don't want to have those, there are multiple other places that don't want to talk about that they can go to. But again, for me, it was, I don't see these spaces existing in a safe way that we can talk about it. And I want to make that a thing. It's as easy as that. You got to make your own party sometimes.
Oh, I was muted. Okay, now I'm not muted. Like, yes, I agree. And I'm so happy that you were on this panel with us, because after we get to these, past these, like, you answer, then you answer, then you answer, we're kind of going to have more of like conversation, because I know it's like a lot sitting there listening to everyone answer a question. So Devoney, you are our last one for this question. So as a professor and writer, you teach classes on Jane Austen, you've written numerous books and essays on the author, you spend a lot of time thinking about Jane Austen, writing about Jane Austen. So what is it for you that keeps you just continuously interested in her life and her works and her words?
I think this panel is evidence of how amazing she is at being adaptable, and how her characters and her conflicts continue to speak to so many people, as Bianca says, in different ways, but to enough of us that we can have this global community of people who recognize what you mean when you say Mr. Darcy. We might have fights about it, but or recognize what you mean when you say Elizabeth Bennet or Mrs. Bennet. These are just incredible characters that still speak to people and are still alive. The original novels are important to me too. I think the way that the original novels stay alive is through these retellings and these remakings and new communities reading and making sense of them. But the way that I think about the original novels is that they are so rereadable, that you find something new every time you go in. And that's what I try to bring to the classroom, to students, and to show them the layers that you can read these novels on and in, and the ways that they don't speak to our present moment, the ways that they still speak to our present moment, and trying to measure the differences there to make better sense of her time and our own. Is that a bit of a ramble for you, Jessica? I could
No,
touch
that
on
was-
something. I mean, I feel I have such a privileged life that I get to do this for a living. I think, probably others of you who are authors, I don't know if you're going to stick with the Austen life. Sonali, you certainly have. I don't know, Tirzah and Sarah, if this is something you see yourself doing more of, but I feel so lucky that Jane Austen is a part of almost every day and a part of my work life. I just feel really fortunate. She's allowed so many of us to build a world of asking questions. And the way I think about it is, for me, these novels really speak to questions of what it means to lead a meaningful life in a world that's deeply unfair. And I think that's something she was very keenly aware of in her own time, especially in terms of gender and economics. I think there are lots of questions about where her politics were in terms of issues of race and colonialism. And I'm always excited to have those debates because I think we all learn more by having them. But in her own time, she understood that things were not fair. And her characters, from an individual level, try to navigate systems that are set up against them. And so I think these can be really heavy novels, although we know at the end we're going to get that happy ending. And somehow I think that makes for a lot of us feel like it's a journey we want to go on.
Being able to laugh at the world you live in, right? And all the rules you have to live by. And when you start, I think that was the first step, right? You laugh at them and then you can, subvert them. And I think that's what she was doing. She was laughing at the ridiculousness she was living. And some of the retelling thing for me is kind of, laughing at, but not really, it's not funny. A lot of this stuff is not funny. It's not funny to have your estate entailed, but you can make it funny with a Mr. Collins, and so there's
Oh, poor Mr. Collins. I will tell you that I have taken multiple classes where we read Jane Austen, and in college I took a class just on Jane Austen. And I wrote an essay slightly in defense of Mr. Collins because he is a product of his world and how he grew up. And it's not only his fault that he is the way he is. So that's all I'm going to say about Mr. Collins. Poor Mr. Collins, but he is what he is.
he ends up doing well, in terms of life partner and all of those things. So you might be right. He's not evil and therefore does not suffer consequences that are evil in Austen's world. So
He's just ridiculous. He really is. I'm sure we all have like our favorite Mr. Collins and are just like, I can't even watch this movie and listen to him talk Mr. Collins. Like, there's one for everyone. Okay, I'm just going to remind everyone watching while we're live that if you have questions, put those in the comments because I'm watching. And if you ask a question, I will ask it. So there you go. So let me just look at the time. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about diversity already, but diversity covers a lot. So in terms of the diversity in Jane Austen, like the community, the works, the retellings, like movies, like all the stuff, what would you personally like to see more of in like adaptations, retellings, a scholarship? And I'm just going to open this up. So like, if you don't have an answer, you don't have to answer, but if you have an answer, go ahead and answer.
I want on-screen adaptations that have the heroine be a person of color or queer or whatever, but specifically I've seen a lot of trends of the hero happens to be finally not white, and I'm like, yeah, but a lot of women who are reading this also want to have themselves seen. That's a large part of your demographic. And the beauty of the book adaptations is I'm like, look at all of these that are here that you could make for a big screen adaptation that do center women of color.
it's funny you say that, Bianca, because it just struck me that Bride and Prejudice, Gurinder Chadha's film, he is white and she's brown, the family is, and I wonder what that says. I had never really thought of this, but it says interesting things about, since Darcy is supposed to be like the height of the social ladder, to have a white man in a brown family be that. It's interesting.
I mean, that's the other part of it too. I think, like, we look at the persuasions coming from Netflix, and I wonder how they're going to you can either choose to make that part of the plot or not. But I think what's interesting is the discussions that can be had about the tensions that are there, either written from Austen, where there's the tensions between families that you can either read more into because you're aware of the tensions that can come between bringing a white man into a family, as someone who personally understands the tension and concern there. But like, I think that's kind of, again, like the beauty of adaptations, where you can spark deeper conversations around Jane Austen's words and the implications that can come from that. Like, I think that's the thing I've seen a lot of discussion around the Netflix Persuasion, where like, but Anne's father could seem racist, and I'm like, yes, and that could be a really interesting discussion.
I mean, if people use that term, are you kidding me? Anne's dad would be like, I'm not gonna take names, but he would be.
It would be all the bad stuff.
He would be all of them.
Can I add to that, Jessica? I mean, I could say in scholarship, what I'd like to see is more of a sense that this is work for all of us to do as scholars, and not a book on or a special issue on diversity and thinking, okay, now we've done this extra thing and we're done. But like, it's up to, I think, all of us as scholars, and I think the reading community, to make better sense of diversity in Austen's time and in our own time, and having conversations among everyone about how those play into our reading of these books and of these retellings that, and I don't want to answer for the artists who I think are already doing this, but maybe the creative writers here are already doing this. This is central to your work. So I'm preaching to the choir perhaps here, but I think for readers, there are some who haven't maybe yet fully immersed themselves in the questions of what it means to bring a diversity of perspectives to Austen, and how we want to define diversity there. Certainly issues of race are really important right now. I think issues of sexuality are really important right now, but they were also important in Austen's time, and they were there, and it's just that we haven't been reading them so well yet. So I think the retellings invite us in a really beautiful way to return to these questions in our community. And Bianca's work on Jane Con has just been a leading force in making this happen in the fandom. And I'm just really grateful to Bianca for all of the questions and energy she's brought.
And I know I kind of just jumped in because something Bianca said sparked my brain, but I do feel, as someone who has written these books, that, every year takes us forward, but there is a sense of feeling like you're on the fringes or you're on the outside. There is certainly a huge sense of what are you doing here when you're at, Jasna, or you are at in one of those spaces. There is certainly almost, a sense of you bastardizing something. And a part of me, loves that, because damn straight I am, and it's high time. But I think it's for younger authors, and for people who have not built their armor maybe, or their thick skins, it is intimidating. It can be daunting, and it can keep you out, and we're still very much in that world.
And what's ironic too about the people who I find doing a lot of that gatekeeping is that they call themselves purists, which, like, I think that's a whole other thing we could unpack a whole title around, naming yourself that. But I also think what's interesting is, I'm like, did you not remember that Lady Catherine's not a good person for doing those things? Like, she literally did those things like you're doing. You're keeping someone out. You're telling them they're not worthy. They can never. And how dare they defy you? And yet Lizzie Bennett's the one defying the status quo. She's defying those things. And I think, again, like, to me, I'm like, that's, you talked a little about Lizzie too. And I think that, like, that's the thing. Like, if Jane is telling us anything from beyond the grave, I think one of the things is you don't have to listen to the Lady Catherines of the world. You can do what you need to to build your path. You can say no, even if you're like, oh God, I don't know if I'd marry him right now. Like I was just trying to sleep. You know, you can do what you need to do. It's going to be hard, but I also think, like you said, we're making progress. I would hope that we are slowly building circles of either mentorship or communities that can help support folks as they're trying to make those first steps, even if they're hard. I think that, like, I would hope that people, I know, seeing like your work and other folks here, I know that like that feels empowering to me just to see it, because I hadn't seen that growing up. And like, to me, thinking about teenagers now, getting to see your book and take your book and do this, like, find meaning in that, to me, I'm like, oh, that gives me chills thinking about like what that could mean for them as an author.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna take this moment to go to our next question. I'm just making sure. And again, anyone has questions? Oh, Jessica asked a question, but I'm gonna save this question for after this next question, because we're gonna start talking about Jane Austen and her relevance in popular culture, which is like totally relevant, but we're gonna talk about it anyways. So it's like we have Pride and Prejudice and zombies. We have board games. Marrying Mr. Darcy, by the way, is a great board game. It's really fun to play. We have modern retellings. We have murder mysteries. We have graphic novels. I mean, it's endless. We have, oh, here's my chance. We have finger puppets. You know, it's like Jane Austen can be anything. So this is another one of those. Feel free to answer if you want to. So what is it about Jane Austen, her words, and her world that keep her relevant?
I mean, I feel like a lot of the work that we're all doing is keeping her relevant because of, you know, just the different ways that you can reimagine her work, whether it's contemporary settings or, you know, going back and sort of revising and revisiting those historical settings and bringing in the, you know, the elements and diversity that we were talking about that has been overlooked for so many years. I mean, Jane Austen's books are about society and the way people interact. And I really liked how Devoney put it in terms of like putting characters in very unfair systems and situations and seeing how they react to that. That's so relevant, I think, no matter what the time period is. And there's just so much that's so rich about Jane Austen's work that people are bringing in and reimagining and constantly like adding to that sort of cultural like knowledge and narrative, and it's really exciting. I love reading and rereading Austen's adaptations because there's so much out there, and it's, you know, every time I read something new, it adds a little bit more and adds like another layer and dimension to all of these ideas that she originally wrote 200 years ago, but we're still talking about. So I don't feel like that's going to go away anytime soon. And it's really exciting. And I don't know, you all are just very creative. I enjoy reading and rereading, and it's just so much fun. So I'm going to let you all take it away.
I also just want to add that I think that her characters as well are something that, you know, because they're so iconic. You know, she's created characters that are lovable, that are loathsome, that are ridiculous, that are admirable, that are irritating, and they've appealed to people, you know, across time, across, you know, cultures. And I think that is something that keeps her, you know, that makes her enduring to every generation. And yeah.
I think as a storyteller, as a person who's trying to create stories, your whole thing is you're trying to say something about the human condition, not to sound pretentious, but to think that what she was able to zero in about the human condition 200 years ago, that's the thing, so keenly, because every one of these books, I mean, Pride and Prejudice was called First Impressions, right? So it's literally about how people we meet are holographic projections of our own mind and not people, right? And that has not changed at all. The reasons we use to other people have changed, but that has not changed. Persuasion is about making mistakes when you're young. because we're all stupid when we're young, and we all listen to people and we make mistakes, but mistakes are not absolute. If you will change and you will grow, you will have another chance. That has not changed. It's those things that she was able to. I just my Emma retelling, not to plug it, called the Emma Project, is so all of the Emma retellings focus on the matchmaking, but really to me, Emma was about the haves thinking they know what's better for the have-nots simply because they have more. And we live in a world where philanthropists are literally using money to change the course of the world. We live in a world where charity is a press of a button. So this whole thing about doing for someone else because you have more is so relevant in our world today. So that's what Emma is. So it's brilliant. I think that she was able to, she gave, those characters are very of that time, but the human condition, those pieces, they're just taking different forms. And I think that's why she endures. It is truly genius, what she was doing.
I was like, am I gonna start talking too soon? But no, I think we're good. So we have a few Facebook questions, and this might be difficult. So if you can't think of one, like, no pressure. I know it's hard to come up with stuff on the spot. This is from Jessica. So this might be tricky, but do you have a favorite Jane Austen quote?
I totally have a poster of Jane Austen quotes above my head right now that I'm looking at. So it would be like a lot. I could just like read one off. I can't come up with anything like off the top of my head, but one of the things that I really enjoy about writing Jane Austen retellings, she's in the public domain, so I can just pull anything I want. I really enjoy reading and like underlining the lines that make me laugh and then trying to incorporate them into my books somehow, whether it's like direct quote, but like usually completely different situation or scenario, or just kind of reworking a little bit for flow. But she has some zingers. I mean, every time that Mr. Bennet makes a comment about how Mr. Collins cracks him up, like it's gold. It's just gold. So yeah, sorry, I don't have a favorite quote that I can give you all, but I do love Jane Austen quotes and I love working them in whenever I can.
There's just so many.
Yeah, I had such a hard time. I did a book of Jane Austen quotes, The Daily Jane Austen, and I had to narrow it to 378. And that sounds like, oh, you could do that in a second, right? It was actually really hard. And I ended up having to leave out, a lot of things that I really love. And the one that I want to be able to quote exactly, and I'm going to get it close, but not exactly, is in her letters where she's writing to her sister. And she says, I will not say that the mulberry tree is dead, but it is not currently alive. And, I love that she does it too in her prose, right? This kind of backing into it, the double negative and turning it into a joke. And dead trees are not a joke, but, trying to deliver this news gently to her sister. I love that technique in her writing, saying one thing and the other and making us laugh.
As a romance author, I'm half agony, half hope.
Yeah.
I mean, there is nothing more beautiful. It's so damn cheesy, but it's so beautiful. It's just.
I was literally about to say the whole thing. I was just about to say the whole letter. Like, if I can't quote it, but like Wentworth's entire letter, I think, is my favorite. I reread it 1,000 times, especially when I was writing the book. But I think that is probably my favorite bit of her writing. Yeah.
Sarah, is your next one going to be Persuasion?
Oh no, this one is Persuasion.
Oh, this is okay.
Yeah.
It's I mean, I think you're absolutely right, and I feel like Recipe for Persuasion is really an homage to that letter. So really what I was doing is recreating all the things he says in action. Like that's what it is to me, rather than even more than the actual plot. So yes, beautiful.
Yeah, that letter just like so, and maybe that's why people have a hard time adapting Persuasion for screen, because like you got to sell that letter. You gotta, if you can't sell that point, what are you doing? I also recommend for folks who want to find more amazing Jane singers, her letters are great. One of my favorite things I recently shared was like she's writing a letter to her sister talking about her massive hangover, and I'm like, I love this woman. Like some of the stuff she says, I think, in her letters just gives you a really keen insight into her humor and like how she would have been to be around, and the cutting things she could say about people's husbands and other things. She could say very cutting things in her letters, which makes you wonder the cutting things that are said in those letters that are long gone. But yeah, I think there's just a trove of things in those letters if people are interested in more.
Yeah, I love the Persuasion letter. And that's like, I can put the movies on like the background and like do things. But when it's the scene where like she's reading it and then you hear like the voiceover, I'm just like full attention on the screen. I can't do anything else. I need to just absorb this and live in the moment because it's just so great. Oh, I love it so much.
It's like the proposal scene in Pride and Prejudice. I mean, hypnotic, right? No matter how badly it's done, that is just classic, right? I mean, that's absolute authorly genius to just take his entire personality and hit it, with a hammer. It's just perfect. And she turns that story on that one scene. Everything turns. It's brilliant.
Okay, this is another toughie, but you're prepared for this because I sent it to you. So, do you have a favorite Jane Austen? I'm just gonna say character. I don't know why I said main character because like they're all great. And if you do, why? Just leave it out there. Who's gonna go first?
Okay, I'll go first then.
I don't want to call on you.
I will say my first impulse is, of course, to say Anne, or after spending so much time with my version of her. But I actually have a really soft spot for Catherine from Northanger Abbey. I don't know, like I can tell that Northanger Abbey isn't as sophisticated as later work, but for some reason, like I find it really enduring. I think because you can tell it's a first novel, so there's something really, really warm about it. I don't know if I'm explaining that well. Like her fangirling sort of, but also kind of parody of Gothic, like the books that she loves, and like Catherine is a reader, and she's naive, and she's sort of coming into herself and learning about the world. And I have a real soft spot for her and that book. Yeah.
Thank you for going first, Sarah.
I think that like as I've gotten older, I've actually appreciated her a lot more. I think that like Catherine Morland in Northanger Abbey is such like a love letter to fandom for me. The way that I read it is very much in line with that. Not just for genre, but I think about, this is so relatable for any girl who's like stayed up late, like making costumes for a con or something. And I think there's something to be said too for that was an earlier heroine, but I also think there's something really relatable to her about just like getting so entrenched in a world of fantasy that like I'm like, yeah, okay, you got me. You were writing about me the whole time and I didn't even know it, Jane.
Well, I'm not afraid to say the stereotypical thing. Mine is Lizzie Bennet, and I don't care if that's the easy answer. It's my easy answer, and I'm probably going to stick with it as long as it works. But I think the idea that she delights in anything ridiculous, and that she is appreciated by the people who love her for her cleverness. I think so often it's beauty over brains in a lot of the novels from this period. And I just love the idea that, she's certainly also a beautiful woman from what we're told, but it's her ability to laugh at things and her cleverness that make her so attractive to me, I think.
I also love Lizzie. She, for me, still is like the most fun to write and rewrite when you're doing a sort of retelling. However, I have to say I have a real soft spot for Eleanor Dashwood because she's kind of like the glue that's holding her family together. And she, I think that probably I relate to her a little bit because of how she, really denies her own feelings in service of taking care of her family. But then she has to learn that she has to acknowledge what she wants. So I really like that about the Dashwood sisters. And I like their sisterly dynamic as well. So yeah, there's probably a tie between Lizzie and Eleanor for me.
Yeah, I was gonna just want to add that Eleanor was like my second choice. I just love her quiet strength that she has like throughout the book. It's like, yeah, I love her as well. So just wanted to add that in.
Personally, I'm stuck between Anne and Eleanor. It's like I relate to the quiet suffering, do it all, take care of everyone. Okay, we have Sonali. Did you want to answer or do you want me to move on? You can't choose.
The rest we'd need an hour. No, it's all the side characters, like every one of their archetypes. Like today, you can't write a book without a Catherine de Bourgh. It's no.
It's everything.
Everything.
Well, we have off of this question, an additional question from one of the viewers, Laura. Which Austen character is most similar to your own personality?
I don't have an answer, but I used to say this is a question I think that's commonly asked in those. Well, I'm asked that a lot, and I used to think I'm very clever because I used to always say I can relate to Emma the most because I always put intention over action, and because I feel like I know what's best for everyone better than they do. But now that I have done the retelling and I have understood that character more, maybe not, but that used to be my standard answer.
I love that you get asked that a lot.
And that I've been giving the wrong answer all this while.
I feel like that was literally me. Like I've always said Emma whenever anyone asked me because I feel like there's a lot for me, especially when I was younger, that I specifically was just like, not only did I have like an older kind of parent figure that I was kind of having to kind of take care of, but also have to have that confidence of like, you're kind of the adult all the time. And then you kind of have to fake the surety. Cause I think that's a little bit of what she's doing. She's like, she's sure, but also is she like, does she have all the experience behind what she's saying to like really make that work? But I also think for me, what I really like about Emma is that like she can have these flaws that are really right there and prescient in a way that I think that like I want to make clear to people when they're like, oh, you do these things. I'm like, yes, but I'm a flawed person. Please know that I am not perfect. And I think that like with Emma, when I see her and the way that she's adapted to, I like the ability of people to grow and learn. I feel like I'm past my Emma stage at this point, but I definitely can relate to being like, yeah, I can see an Emma in myself.
So well intentioned, right? Always.
Always the best of intentions.
I love this idea too of imagining what you were and what you've grown into. And I think, I probably started out more like a Fanny Price And although I wish I'd become a Mrs. Croft, maybe I'm a little bit more Mary Crawford. So I've really got to work on myself.
Stephanie, as I'm growing older, I think my kids will tell you I'm Mrs. Bennett. So, the horror.
I love that. It's too difficult of a question. Like, I feel like at different times of the day, like I'm a very different Jane Austen character. Depends on how much coffee. Okay. I think I'm going to move on to the next question. Okay. So we've been talking about adaptations, retellings. We've mentioned some of them. Do you have a favorite or most loved movie or TV series adaptation of Jane Austen's life or her works? And if you are one of those people that, there are some people that just don't like the movies or TV series, that is okay. That is okay. Who wants to go? Because like I'll answer this myself too.
I mean, I will say that I really love the new Emma adaptation. I thought it was really well done. In terms of like the one that I watched the most though, I probably would have to go with Bride and Prejudice, which was brought up earlier as the Bollywood version. I think I like stumbled upon that really randomly in high school, and I fell for it so hard. I like used to have it on DVD and I would watch it and make everybody around me watch it multiple times. I thought it was really fun, and I will still watch it to this day when I just need something fun to just kind of lose myself in.
I am a 2005 Pride and Prejudice defender officially. It's probably engraved somewhere. It can be on my tombstone when I die because listen, I love that version. That is my version of what, when I read those books, to me, that is who I'm seeing, except for Mr. Collins. The Mr. Collins from Pride and Prejudice and Zombies is actually the best Mr. Collins. Fight me. Matt Smith is so good. But 2005 to me, yes, it's a little Bronte-esque. Yeah, but like, I love it. The music's great. The director talks about like his intention with like the music and the sound mix. It's so good. There's so much love that goes into that. And yeah, I just shamelessly am like, there's not exactly a pawn scene, but there's longing looks. There's like that hand clutch that he does after he touches her hand. There's a lot to love there. And yeah, I'm a defender of, people can have their favorites. I am definitely like, have your favorites, but I want to defend that one because I feel like it takes so much, like a massive beating online, and I'm just like, no, there's some redeemable parts. It's really good.
Matthew McFadden forever and ever and ever is Mr. Darcy. Even more Mr. Darcy than Trisha Rajay, which is saying a lot for me.
Like, I'm scared to watch Succession because I'm afraid that that's going to ruin him for me as an actor and as Darcy. Like, that's where I am on not being able to touch Succession.
I haven't watched it because I was going to. Now I'm going to think about it. I can tell you someone no. Should I be negative on this panel? No, Sally Hawkins as Anne Elliot should never have happened. It's an abomination. I just want to, slap someone.
Well, the fish, the kiss. That's the longest scene ever directed in the history of everything.
How can you make Anne Elliot awful? Like, you took all her spinelessness and turned her into spinelessness. Like that. I cannot watch Sally Hawkins without getting terribly angry on Anne Elliot's behalf ever. So I don't watch her in anything. Like, I just cannot. Because I mean, the least you can do is say captain with a, nothing against people who can't say, but whatever. It's not to be ableist, but I think it's annoying. It's not that she can't say it right. I'm sorry. I could go on.
We have strong opinions, and that's okay.
And he's gorgeous. Like, he's the best he's not the best Wentworths have all been equally great, but yeah. But I want to just get him away from her and with the real Anne. Just Bianca does not agree with me. I see.
No. I have joked before at wanting to intercut that Wentworth with the other Anne.
Yes.
Because I actually like that. To me is like, sorry, Kieran Hine fans, like, you can love him, you can have him, but I actually kind of prefer the other Wentworth for his.
Yeah, Bernie Jones. Oh my goodness. I mean, I'll take him as anyone, but he's a great Wentworth.
Facts. Agreed.
Now I just want to do a watch party with you all for like all the Austen things ever, so we can have all the commentary.
You
should watch Bride and Prejudice with me. That will not go well.
Probably not. I heard you guys.
Yeah. Yes, that is, and I love all of Gurinder Chadha's other work, especially before that. She has made Bend It Like Beckham and Baji on the Beach, which are both fabulous films. And I think that was the film that convinced me that I was not, that my idea to not do I never wanted to, but that was like, wow, this is like translating a language and nothing else. It brings nothing new to the story at all. So it was just like, you're literally a brilliant filmmaker and you translate a dialogue across culture. So, sorry. They're all still very gorgeous.
Has everyone seen Austenland? Because that is my rainy day movie. It is amazing.
Is that the book club one? No. Yes.
No.
That's like where it's like a theme. It's almost like a theme park, but it's like role-playing theme park.
Yeah, it's like a resort experience
Yeah.
that she goes. It's based on a book by Shannon Hale. And the book is very different from the movie, but the movie was kind of like an indie film. And like, my favorite thing about this is silly, is like, maybe they didn't have a lot of money for the soundtrack, so it's like all 80s hits for the soundtrack. It's fantastic.
It's like a period piece, because if you look at their phones and the TVs, it's actually subtly like a period piece that was specifically made. And also, if you watch Regency House Party, which you can watch on YouTube for free, it is a reality show where they did pretty much the Austenland thing, but it was like a reality show where they put people in. There's like homages to that in like the costumes and everything in Austenland. Like it's really good. Austenland is like, I think, almost like an ethnography of Jane Austen fans.
And Jennifer Coolidge so totally steals that show. She steals it in a beautiful way.
Did you die? Like, she's so good.
Yes.
And I think, Sonali, you mentioned the book club. Jane Austen book club. That was the book. It was a book and a movie. So good too. So good.
Yeah, that's where they all learned something from her reading her books.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, when it's a hard day, my husband's like, is it a Jane Austen book club day? I'm like, probably. It probably is. Because it's like you're reading them all. Kind of. You're experiencing them all like in under 2 hours? Fantastic. Okay, we're somehow getting to the end. So we have another Facebook question. This is from Joe. Okay. So Jane Austen wrote of relationships, especially marriage. Do you think she stayed single because of her independence, exceptional intelligence, or not finding a compatible mate, or something else? So your opinion. She was too awesome. That's my opinion.
I think she didn't compromise, and at her time, you couldn't get at her time almost. At my time, certainly up until my mother's and grandmother's time, if you didn't compromise, you didn't marry. horrible thing to say, but that I like to think of it as that. But I hope she had really good things.
I mean, I think it's fascinating that this is a question that we return to, and it's obviously unanswerable. And I think, Joe, the answer is probably all of those things at some different point, right? I don't think she knew she wasn't going to be somebody who would ever be married, and we know that she was engaged for that 24-hour period, right? And then went back on her initial yes. So I love the idea of her not being compromising. I think that's a really good way of, she had high standards, right? But I don't think unlike what Hollywood would like to tell us in some of these stories, I don't think if there was like one moment or one lost love or one defining thing that flipped a switch from what we can tell. It was much more complicated, as it is probably with most lives we could describe and most relationship trajectories we could describe 19th century or today.
And marriage and art are difficult to juggle even today. And of course I visited her home. I say that as though I went to have dinner with her, but I went to Jordan a couple years ago, and I remember having this sense of almost wishing that all I could do was sit in that room and write. And I love my family, and I have as solid a marriage as one can have. But I remember thinking that was all she was able to sit here and do. So there's that aspect of it too.
I'm so jealous. I want to go visit.
It was amazing. Like, it was a spiritual experience. I'm not even,
Okay, thank you, Joe, for that question. Thank you to everyone who's asked a question. Thank you, Laura and Jessica, for your very fun questions earlier. And speaking of fun, that was awesome. What fun projects are you working on that you would like to share with the viewers? Should I just call, or do you guys just want to answer? Maybe I'll call. We're going to go back to the beginning. So Tirzah.
All right. Well, right now I'm working on a first draft of my third book, which is Manslaughter Park. And the titles delight me. But yeah, so it's a retelling of Mansfield Park, and it's been interesting because I really do like Mansfield Park and like all of the complicated characters that are going on. And like, I feel like Fanny Price sometimes unfairly kind of gets looked down upon as an Austen character. It's a really interesting novel. It's kind of a hard novel to retell, even when you kind of throw out a lot of the things that like don't serve a murder mystery plot. So I don't know, it's been interesting. I feel like going into writing this book, I knew Sense and Sensibility and I knew Pride and Prejudice a lot more than I knew Mansfield Park going into this project. So it's been fun because I feel like I've been able to just dive into a lot of Mansfield Park scholarship and really, read and reread these stories and get to know these characters in a fun way. So yeah, I've got like pretty much almost a full first draft and it's a mess. So I'm revising it right now. But that's what I'm working on right now.
I love like all of the titles. Like, they're just all of you, they're brilliant. And I wish that people could see them, but and they look gorgeous. Like, I don't know how well people can see the wall of your books, but together.
I got really lucky with my covers. I just love them so much. So
they're all beautiful.
My publishing team just did an amazing job.
And I wish I had a copy of your book, Sarah, because it's just gorgeous, but we only have it digitally right now because it's checked out. So that makes me sad, but happy because people are reading it, but sad because I can't hold it. So it's conflicting feelings going on. Okay, so Tirzah went. That means Bianca, what fun projects are you working on that you would like to share?
Oh God, I am like just trying to get through finals. In the new year, I'm sure that people can check out. We'll be announcing virtual Jane Con, and when it's going to be, but also how to submit for it, and how it's going to work this year. But basically, it's just a free online Jane Austen conference. That's literally, it's so many time zones. It's like all the time zones. I don't think the sun sets on that conference because of like how many time zones we have for that and how many people participate. And I hope it's going to be bigger and better than ever, but it's really like made for and by fans. Like there's no, you have to be published this many places, you have to have an association with whatever, you have to have a book published. Literally, if you have a topic and you submit through our stuff and you're going to put together a video and post it, you can participate. Because I feel like, you know, there's definitely a, you have to be able to make a video and put it online aspect, which is, can be hard and challenging. But I'm a proponent of, you know, accessible Austen things that are, you know, open to a lot of people and all different interests. Like we had people playing Good Society. We had like, you know, people live playing a Regency RPG game, and I'm like, this is amazing. Along with then like Devoney, you know, doing your talks on things. So it's just really cool to have, you know, that I think is my perfect Jane Austen world, which is everyone just gets to enjoy their little slice of Austen and the things they do. So yeah, I think that's my big thing for the new year, other than me trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life, which no one needs to know about.
Thank you, Bianca. I love the idea of like the sun doesn't set on Jane Austen fans. Like it's still just like we're everywhere. I love it. And Devoney, what are you working on?
So I mentioned that I just finished a biography, Sister Novelist, that's coming out in September from Bloomsbury. And what I think the Austen community will be excited about is that these sisters were living in Austen's age, but they left thousands of letters behind. And there hasn't been a biography of them before. They were pioneering career women, historical novelists, professional women writers, but they also really lived lives that were a lot like Austen heroines. They were opposite personality sisters, kind of like Eleanor and Marianne Dashwood. They got into Austen heroine like scrapes years before Austen's novels appeared. But you can reconstruct from their letters all of the adventures they had and what it was like to be a celebrated women author in this period. And I'm just really excited to bring these sisters' stories to light for the first time. And if you want to follow the rollout, I guess this is the next thing, right? If you want to learn more about the book, I have lots of things on my website, devoney.com. And I also have an author newsletter on Substack at devoney.substack.com. If you want to see the cover, which I get to reveal pretty soon, I'm excited about that, and learn more about the rollout to this book.
Yay, I love cover reveals. Like Sonali, speaking of what's next for you, like I love all your covers.
I do love them, and I was a little nervous until the Emma Project cover came out because I have this vision where I want, you know, the four of them to look like they're a set but have their own personalities. So I am furiously trying to see if this will even show up. Does it? That's all of them together.
Oh,
so that's
yeah, I can see them.
Project. Yeah, it's probably a terrible. Anyway, so
I wish I would have printed it, but I guess.
But you don't have Emma Project on there, right? Which comes out May 17th next year. So very, very, very excited about that. It's gender flipped. Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors, I always meant to gender flip, but Vansh Raje just is such an Emma that happened automatically, and it's gender flipped, and it is very much it's the least retelling of all the retellings. So it's not a Clueless. It is it's really this guy who's been traveling around the world on charitable missions, and has now come back because there's plenty of problems in America too to solve. And it's so that's your Emma. It is very much not matchmaking, and she is 13 years older than he is and was his brother's girlfriend, and so there's that aspect of it, and her name is Nightlina. So there's that. So I am extremely excited about that. But before that, in January 11th, I have a short story coming out with Amazon. I just revealed that cover on my Instagram about an hour before I got on this call. So it's it's called The Wedding Setup, and it's a short, but it is it's this great second chance. Well, I shouldn't say great, that's not modest, but it's this really fun second chance romance set at a big fat Indian wedding. You know, what more can you ask for? So it's that's next, and then I have a super secret project, women's fiction, coming out at the end of next year, which I am incredibly excited about. So it's 3 generations of Indian women on the dating scene, with with old Bollywood scandals left in the past and whatnots. So yeah, I've been on deadline for that tonight. So I will be up all night sending that off, and I've been crying and laughing. So I'm really waiting to get that out there. We don't have a title or anything yet, but that'll happen. And again, newsletter, Instagram, everything's on my website, sonalidev.com.
Oh, thank you for spending time with us, even though you have deadlines. Oh my goodness.
Tonight, but that's okay.
Like I procrastinate. And Sarah, is it going to be another book inspired?
Yes, but this time it's not going to be Austen. I feel like a traitor admitting that.
It's okay.
It's going to be inspired by Much Ado About Nothing this time. Yeah. So it's got that hate to love relationship going for it, and I'm really excited. I'm having fun with it. The title reveal and cover reveal should be happening soon. We'll see. So I hope you guys look out for it. It is set this time in Trinidad, and it's sort of set behind the scenes of the lives of the people who make the costumes for our carnival festival. So yeah, I'm having fun with it right now. Hopefully more news on that soon.
Yeah, I feel like Jane Austen stories and like Shakespeare, it's like it's pretty good together, you know? I have a Shakespeare finger puppet, but I left him at my desk. So unfortunately, only Jane is with us tonight, but that's okay. So I'm just going to quickly go through the comments really quick, make sure. Thank you everyone who's watching and who's watching later. We are at the end of our chat. Let's see, I think everyone shared where people can find you, except Tirzah. Did you share where people can find you? Just
so I have a website. Just tirzahprice.com. And then I also hang out on Twitter and Instagram. So you can find out all sorts of, fun stuff there. And my next book is Sense and Second Degree Murder, which comes out in April. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
And Bianca, did you share? Just in case people are only listening and not like reading.
I'm bookworking on many things, I think Facebook and Twitter, and then I'm just Bianca Hernandez on Instagram. And I also have a YouTube channel where sometimes I talk about books, but mostly just sewing things right now, because that's what I'm doing with my life.
I love it. And I just want everyone to know that you can check out books by the authors from the library. You can purchase them from Mysterious Galaxy Bookstore or your local bookseller. And I recommend you buy all of them because they're all great. 5-star review on all of them. So I want to thank our panelists, our authors, our geeks, wonderful ladies for joining me. We're just so happy that you said yes and that you're spending time with us and sharing your works with our community, our local community here, and then the community of just everyone who's watching for wherever you are. Really quickly, I pasted into the comments and into the chat description a really quick, really easy 3-question survey. Let us know that you enjoyed this and you'd like to see more programming like this, because we're a public library and we only get so much funding, and our Friends of the Library group helps raise that funding. So the more feedback we get, the better. And yes, Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to everyone. Thank you, Mysterious Galaxy. Thank you, Tirzah, Bianca, Devoney, Sonali, Sarah. I know that you're spread out everywhere and you're in different time zones and we're in different weather conditions. And I'm just so thankful that you spent some time with me. So I'm going to say good night to our viewers, or good morning, wherever it is.
Thank you.